What if the best dividend you'll ever earn doesn't come from a stock or a bond, but from your own happiness? Today on Escape the Clock, I'll break down how to work toward your financial freedom while maximizing your own utility. Stay tuned. Welcome to another episode of Escape the Clock, the podcast where I, the author of the book, help you make your plan toward financial freedom and have the option not to work. Let me start today's conversation with a question. Why are you working toward financial freedom? Is it because you want to escape the grind of work? Is it so you can spend more time with your family? Or maybe it's to finally create the space to do the things that you've always dreamt of doing in your life. Whatever your reason, there is one thing that we all have in common. We'd like to maximize our happiness. Here's the truth. Money doesn't guarantee happiness, but a lack of money, that almost always correlates with unhappiness. For me, happiness has been about freedom. The freedom to wake up and exercise when I want to rest in the middle of the day if I need to, the freedom to spend time with my kids, or to take my wife out on a date on a random Tuesday afternoon. Economists call this utility. It's the happiness we gain from something. And that gain doesn't have to be material. It can be as simple and as valuable as time. What if I told you that the ultimate measure of success in a financial freedom program isn't how much money you accumulate, but how much happiness it brings into your life? Okay, now if you're rolling your eyes, hang on for just a minute, just bear with me, because we could all use a bit more happiness. Here's the key. Your financial plan and your happiness goals are actually deeply interconnected. Intentionally designing your program to maximize both, not just your wealth, means that you will reach your destination and enjoy the journey. Consider this. 68% of early retirees report improved happiness. A study by Viva found that nearly 2/3 of those who retired early said that their happiness increased after leaving work, with measurable boosts to family relationships, friendships, health, and just their overall well-being. Even more striking, people who say that their lives have a sense of purpose report being up to 4 times happier. But here's the paradox. While most of us value happiness, unhappiness, depression, and anxiety are rising. Happiness levels have been tracked in 20 countries for the past 2 decades. 15 of those countries are less happy today than they were 20 years ago, with the US and Canada have seen some of the sharpest drops, with over 16% and 18% drops since 2011. And yet, priorities are shifting. A 2024 survey found that 2/3 of Americans would rather have a job they love with lower pay than a high-paying job that they hate. 72% say they would rather define success through soft life culture, which means through happiness, contentment, and fulfillment, rather than the hustle culture, which was focused solely on wealth and status. So the cost of ignoring happiness is enormous. Globally, depression and anxiety drain an estimated $1 trillion in lost productivity every single year. In the US, unresolved depression reduces productivity by 35% and accounts for $210 billion annually. This is money that's lost from work, medical costs, absenteeism. So happiness isn't just a fluff. It's a real measurable thing, and it matters, especially to each of us. It matters to us, our loved ones, our jobs, and definitely our financial plans. So here's the bigger question. What if happiness could be integrated into every single decision you make? Today, we're talking exactly about that. How to keep happiness front and center in our financial goals. The financial world loves to focus on ROI, compounding, rates, dividends, things like that. But the biggest payoff of financial independence isn't just about money. It's health, family, experiences, and joy. So why does working towards financial freedom often feel like a sacrifice of all those other things? The truth is, it doesn't actually have to be. Let's think about dividends for a second. You probably already have them in your planning or already in your portfolio. But what if you could also earn a happiness dividend? By investing in things that bring you real utility, things like your health, your relationships, or experiences that you really enjoy, and knowing those things can bring a return into your life that could potentially last a lifetime. You could take a simple example, like a gym membership. This is a really simple one. It might look expensive on paper. You might look at your budget and go, no, I'm not going to do that. But if you actually use it, the benefits can compound. You feel better, you're building connections, and you're potentially even reducing future medical costs. That's a true return on investment. So let's dive into the big areas where you can invest not just for financial freedom, but for a life that pays dividends and happiness. How much time are you currently dedicated to your physical health every week? Are you taking steps to manage sleep, stress, burnout? If you continue on your current path, will you have the energy and health to enjoy the freedom you're working towards? This first project is all about our health, because when it comes to investing in happiness, health is the foundation. If you don't have your health, everything else, your time with family, traveling, even the money you've worked so hard to save, it will all get diminished. That's why the first strategy is to identify your health risks early and take action before they grow into bigger problems. So health is wealth, and without it, freedom is useless. Let's start with a quick scenario that I will follow throughout this episode to help show how a happiness dividend can really pay off. Saban used to be disciplined about his workouts. He'd have morning runs, gym sessions after work. It was just all part of his routine. Part how he liked to stay energized and focused. But over the last few years, life started to push back. Work hours stretched longer, late nights became the norm, and deadlines took priority over lifting dumbbells. Slowly, the gym membership went unused, and then finally he canceled it. And it felt like a win for his budget at first. Financially, everything looked perfect. Promotions came through, savings goals were on track, and investments were growing. On paper, Saban was succeeding. But on the inside, something was off. His dream has always been to retire at 50, spend his days playing casual sports and traveling freely with his family and friends. But lately, he's found himself questioning whether he's even had the energy to enjoy those plans. The very freedom he's been working toward felt at risk, not because of money, but because of his health. And that's when he realized a hard truth. Financial success alone isn't enough. To truly reap the benefits of early retirement, he's going to have to invest in his health as deliberately as he invests in his portfolio. So let's get into it. What are the key strategies that we should be thinking about when we're trying to build a happiness dividend when it comes to our own health outcomes? Well, it actually all starts with first identifying health risks, because we're all different. What I need to be paying attention to is going to be different than you. So think of like health as a part of like your finance plan. When you're thinking about how to achieve your goals, you have to also think about financial risks. So when it comes to health risks, we're trying to find them so that we can plan around them and just create mitigations. It's as simple as starting with our own family history. We can do that through a doctor's visit or even a conversation, but things like pre-screenings can really help a lot, because as we go and collect data, we can start to work risks into our plan. Heart disease, diabetes, cancer, really genetic red flags, things like that. We just really need to look for those, because once we find those, we can start to make plans to follow up, especially around different critical ages. And if you start to take inventory of your current lifestyle, how is your current weight compared to the target weight that you're looking for? How is your sleep levels or stress levels? How much daily activity are you really getting? Then as you start to collect that information, you'll be able to start to make plans. For instance, you might find you need to get a smartwatch or a fitness tracker to help you figure out actually how is your sleep and stress levels. And as you collect that data, you might start to set goals, and then you can measure how well you're doing. And it's not just physical. There's mental health risk we have to pay attention to here as well. Happiness is more than the physical. And the impact here can be major. Chronic stress, anxiety, persistent low moods, these will undermine all other health gains if we're not careful. Mental health issues are linked to increased risk of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and other chronic conditions. So these things will get us in all kinds of ways. So incorporating like mindfulness practices like meditation, journaling, and breathing exercises, these can actually help for some people really well. You might consider making that part of your plan. But the goal here is to really start setting good health goals for ourselves. And of course, SMART goals are the way to go. What specifically are you trying to achieve? How are you going to measure it? Will it be number of pounds lost, the amount of strength that you've built, how many more miles you can cover? And you'll be able to track progress of all of this in your sheet or journal or however it is you want to see how you're doing. And you want to be honest about what is attainable for you. Start small, take easy wins, and then work up to those bigger milestones. We're building a dividend here, just like when we do this with stock and equity. We don't go all in on one stock right away to get the exact dividend that we're looking for. We build up shares over time. We use drip to help create momentum. It's the same thing with our health. We start with what's attainable, we measure progress, and then we master it over time. So track mood, energy, stress, do it in a journal, or you can use an app. Look for patterns, find ways to do improvements, and most importantly, celebrate milestones, because health goals are hard. So you want to reinforce what works and don't get discouraged with what doesn't. And make those small adjustments in diet, movement, stress management, because all of those things add up over time. But look, this isn't just a normal fitness program. We're not making a health program. That we're budgeting for wellness here. So let's think about how this impacts our financial goals, because these things are interconnected. First, when we go and look at our budgets, we really do need to prioritize for high impact items when it comes to health outcomes. So when you're looking, start to reduce expenses that will allow us to spend more for wellness visits, healthier food, vitamins, gym memberships, anything that is considered a strategy towards your health outcome. Try to free up cash flow so that it feels okay to spend on those things by reducing other areas, especially areas that have negative health outcomes. That is the real trick here. And if you can free up enough cash, now adding things like therapy or coaching or even medication apps, these things can be really useful when you're taking them on in your plan with strong intent. And you're not just budgeting money into this, you're budgeting time as well. So you want to really make sure that you're building a schedule for yourself, because, time is going to get us to our goals. So schedule daily or weekly workout routines. Also schedule maybe weekly mental health check-ins to assess your mood, stress levels. Doesn't have to be a therapist. You can just journal or just sit and think, how am I feeling right now? Write it down. Start to see, is more certain workout helping you feel better about yourself? This is about maximizing happiness. So we need to measure that. And again, if you are scheduling therapy or coaching or going to peer support groups, they can reinforce and help you, guide you through a lot of these things as well. That's a great optimization technique. And don't forget to prioritize sleep and recovery, because you can't just do all workout. It's workout, diet, and sleep. All three of those are critical pieces, both for your mental and physical well-being. And when it comes to the financing part, you can even consider using incremental budgets, even $50 to $100 extra per month. That can go into really nice outcomes, like through mental wellness apps, or even an occasional massage or a gym pass, whatever it is you think will be the best use for you. And gradually increase your wellness spending as your finances allow. If you're doing okay, you got more cash flow coming in, and you're getting something out of this, put more money into it. Again, incremental is the key here. And you can even use flexible spending here. You can think about using retreat weekends, or a certain number of classes per year, like special classes that might accelerate your goals. And you can try to lower costs using cost sharing, group classes, or online fitness, or even your own work benefits. All of these can help you not break the bank when it comes to your health outcomes. So let's go back to Saban now. He was trying to figure out how to get his health back on track. So he decides to schedule a full checkup, and he shares his concerns with his doctor. And his doctor highlights that he has elevated stress levels and reminds him that regaining health becomes more difficult as we get older, making action now critical. And with that perspective, Sabin resolves not to sacrifice his health for short-term gains ever again. His first step is to revisit his budget. He reallocates funds to prioritize healthy food, reinstates his local gym membership, and then he cuts spending on subscriptions and other low utility items that weren't adding real value to his life. And the result? He can stay under his budget while investing in what is now really mattering to him. But next, he needs to set concrete lifestyle goals. First, he needs to limit his work hours. He also decides he could bike to work twice a week, saving money there and getting exercise, and start packing healthy lunches each day when he goes to work. And to make sure he stays active in a way he enjoys, he joins a local softball league, an activity that forces him to leave work early at least one day a week, and adds a new social element to his fitness. Sabin also creates a discretionary wellness fund for things like new sports equipment or an occasional massage, giving himself permission to spend on experiences that enhance his well-being without guilt. By integrating health, fitness, and mental wellness into his daily routine and financial plan, Sabin not only protects his future freedom, but begins to enjoy the journey toward it, experiencing tangible returns on his happy dividend today. Health can't be treated as a sacrifice in pursuit of financial goals. There's no amount of money that can buy back the health that we lose. Believe me, that's true. I sacrificed my own health working in a bad way, and even in early retirement, I'm only getting so much of that back. But you can avoid a lot of that, and that's why it's best to start prioritizing today. Even small actions can reduce the risk of costly medical surprises down the line. And at the same time, it can make you feel more energetic, focused, and confident. By catching these issues early, setting meaningful goals, and tracking progress like you would on any financial metric, you're investing in yourself in a way that pays ongoing returns. Lower future medical cost, more energy, better mood, and a longer, healthier life. That's a pretty great dividend. And remember, personal health is just one part of your happiness dividend. Next, we'll explore how to invest in something equally important, the people closest to us. Who are the people that matter most to you, and how often do you connect with them meaningfully? Are there relationships you've been neglecting that could bring a lot of happiness if you've invested time now? What small action could you take this week to strengthen a key relationship? Are there low-value obligations you could reduce or delegate to free time for those who matter most? The currency of life is time, not money, and how we spend that time reflects our true priorities. Investing in relationships with family and friends who positively impact us is some of the most valuable work we can do. Social connections aren't just nice. They're essential for our happiness and our well-being. In 2024, approximately 21% of U.S. adults reported feeling lonely, with many feeling disconnected from friends, family, and the world. Among young adults aged 18 to 24, the loneliness rate is even higher, with 28% experiencing frequent loneliness. These feelings of isolation are not just emotional, they have real health implications. Loneliness is linked to increased risks of chronic diseases, mental health disorders, and even premature mortality. For our happiness dividend, prioritizing social connections is an investment with lasting returns. The more you nurture these relationships today, the richer your life and your freedom will be tomorrow. This is important to Sabin as well. He is feeling good now that he's back on track in the swing of working out and playing sports, but there's a nagging emptiness he can't shake. He's been focused on his health and his routines that he realizes he's been neglecting the people who matter most to him. He's been neglecting his family and his old friends. One evening at softball practice, while catching his breath after warm-ups, it hits him. He hasn't called his mom in weeks. His brother Edgar's been sending messages that go unanswered, and his closest friends have stopped inviting him out because they just assume he's too busy. He remembers how much joy those connections brought him and how his life felt richer when he made time for them. there are a lot of key strategies that can help Saban and us when it comes to maximizing our social dividend. Let's go ahead and jump in how we can start to build that into our plan. First is auditing our current social connections. It might sound silly, but listing out the people who are important to you, your family, your close friends, your mentors, supportive colleagues. This will help us identify the relationships that feel neglected or that can bring consistent joy versus those that drain us of energy. The goal is to focus on people who energize and support us rather than spreading ourselves too thin. It's quality over quantity is what I'm trying to get at here. And we need to identify the right investments of our time here. So consider both frequency and quality of interactions. Occasional deep connections often matter more than those constant superficial contacts. But with that, we can start to align our schedule with social priorities, blocking time on the calendar for meaningful interactions, just like we would for any other appointment. Using reoccurring reminders for events to do phone calls or lunches or gatherings. This will make sure that we're ensuring consistency and, more importantly, that we're biased to take action. So, treating these commitments as non-negotiable is really the key here. We need to treat our social relationships as something to nurture, something to never neglect. And the time we invest here will compound into long-term happiness. That's the return that we're going for. So setting clear connection goals is the next thing we need to keep in mind. We need to decide on measurable goals for engagement. For instance, you could say, okay, I'm going to call my parents once a week. I'm going to schedule dinner with a friend once a month. I'm going to attend a monthly social group, things like that. We want to have a clear idea of what success is looking like for us here. And just like with health outcomes, we can start small and we can increment it up over time. And, let's look for flexibility. Not everything has to be a painful in-person appointment. We can do, play video games. We can do online video calls. We can do group sessions. There's all kinds of things we can do to build flexibility and to meeting our goals. And of course, there's all the normal things that life throws at us too. There's the celebrations, the holidays, the special events. Going into those deliberately to strengthen bonds can be really critical. Like not just getting through the event, but trying to think what would be a positive outcome for me when it comes to a person or an experience that would matter a lot for me at the event. And use money to buy back time here, to spend more time with loved ones. This is where it really starts to interconnect with our financial plan. Spending is something that's important to do. It's not something to always avoid. For instance, if house tasks or other low utility items are getting in the way of being able to spend time with people, delegating those out or just having someone else, paying someone to do those kinds of things can really be a good strategy. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is free up time, because with time, now we can actually have really strong experiences. And finding strong experiences with someone really matters. So going to a concert with a friend, being able to take a family trip, meals are actually one of the things that show to create the most social bond. All those types of things, making sure that we're picking the ones that have really great settings for us and create great experiences. And high value social investments, they don't have to be expensive. They just have to be taken on intentionally. First, before even going into them, think about potential conflicts and how you might address them. Thinking about them in advance, doing like a pre-mortem, can allow us to really not get stuck in the moment and even potentially avoid something from going wrong. But again, it's about being consistent, showing up regularly, being almost predicted as someone who cares about the social connection. Then the dividend will start paying off. It'll be less about your effort and then more about other people realizing that they can take for granted that you're going to be there. But don't forget to measure. We're measuring how well we're doing here. So reflect how you feel after you're spending time with people. Was that experience energizing? Was it fulfilling? Or was it draining? Be honest about it. You don't owe everything to everyone. We'll pick what pays the dividend. And we wanted to adjust our focus based on what brings the most joy and fulfillment. Journaling again can help here. Writing it down is what I'm getting at. Finding some way to give yourself the space and the time to process it. However your process is, that will help you see how you're measuring. So Sabin, he goes through this. He's at practice. He pulls out his phone when it hits him that he's let his social connections lack, and he starts making a mental list. He thinks of all the ways he could really reconnect with someone. Weekly calls, monthly dinners, shared hobbies, or just even simple check-in messages. And he realizes that meaningful relationships require intentional effort, not just hope that, quote unquote, things will just happen naturally. He also notices how easy it would be to fill the gaps with low utility tasks. Scrolling on social media, binge watching shows, staying late at work, the just a little longer stuff. He understands that time spent with loved ones is irreplaceable, so he begins to see that reconnecting with these relationships isn't just emotionally fulfilling, it's an investment to his own long-term happiness, and therefore a key part of his happiness dividend. By the end of practice, he's determined to act. He decides to schedule a recurring weekly call with his mom, he plans a monthly virtual hangout with his college friends, and he invites Edgar, his brother, to join his softball team. He even considers small ways to buy back time for these connections, hiring help at home, automating errands, freeing up some time to socialize so he can focus on the relationships that matter most. For Sabin, this is more than just checking boxes. It's about creating a consistent, intentional rhythm of connection that will strengthen the social ties, enhance his happiness, and make his journey towards financial freedom more fulfilling. Deep, meaningful connections provide some of the highest returns in your happiness dividend, far more than frequent shallow connections do. So don't wait for others to reach out. Take initiative, invest your time intentionally. Social connections can be incredibly rewarding, but maintaining them often comes with a cost in time and money, which can make us deprioritize them, to be honest. I find it's easy to make excuses. I don't want to bother them, or I'm too busy, or I'll do it next time. And the truth is, the time and energy that we dedicate to these relationships is some of the most important currency that we have to give. It's what makes the journey to financial independence truly worthwhile, because we have more time to put on these experiences and with these people. But if we don't invest with them now, by the time we get to that point of the journey, they might not be available to us. And so we don't want to burn that bridge just because, and we want to continue to invest in it. Because it's the experiences and memories you create with others that bring the most lasting happiness. By intentionally investing in our social lives today, we ensure that our freedom tomorrow is enriched with connection, support, and joy. Okay, so next, I'm going to explore how to make the most of this time, though, because optimizing the happiness dividend can be done as well. Are there trips or experiences you've dreamt of but keep putting off? How often do you prioritize meaningful adventures while you're still healthy enough to enjoy them? When you travel, do you focus more on ticking destinations off a list or creating memories with people you care about? How we spend our time has a direct impact on our overall happiness, and few experiences deliver as much lasting satisfaction as meaningful travel and adventure. The quality of these experiences often changes with age and health, which means the window to enjoy them can be limited. By planning and prioritizing adventures while you're still energetic and healthy, you maximize both the enjoyment and memories you create. Travel isn't about sightseeing. It's about connecting with new cultures, testing your limits, learning new skills, and building relationships that endure. Experiences like climbing a mountain, exploring a new country, or even taking a unique local excursion can provide happiness far beyond the cost. These adventures create stories, shared memories, and personal growth that contribute to your overall well-being. In essence, investing in adventure now is the key component of your happiness dividend. It's time and money spent intentionally to enrich your life in ways that long last after the trip ends. Sabin has been feeling energized and connected lately. His workouts are going well, softball's fun, he's reconnected with friends, family, but one evening after a casual dinner with his brother Edgar, a longing hits him. He's always dreamt of climbing the Japanese Alps. Edgar teases him, why don't you just do it? And Saban's surprised. He's been thinking about this adventure for years, but he's been putting it off, waiting for, quote unquote, the perfect time. This is actually a really common scenario, one where we all have dreams, but it's easy to put them off. The present will almost always take priority, but if we wait to do these things, then there's actually more consequences than we realize. And so the key strategies for this project is to help us prioritize budgeting for meaningful adventures now, because not only does it maximize the journey, but it will actually help us optimize the destination. Let me explain. First, we need to make sure we can take them, and that starts with the budget. With traveling, it's about setting money aside so that we can make sure we can afford the experience, ideally without guilt. So first, we need to allocate a dedicated portion of discretionary budget for the travel and adventure experiences. And it's up to you how much travel you're up for, how expensive you want it to be, and what's worth it to you. One person might enjoy doing, first class upgrades, and another person might enjoy having saved that money to spend it somewhere else on the trip. So it's up to you to decide what's important. But the point is to prioritize trips that will bring lasting memories or personal growth. It's not about short-term thrills. There's other ways to do that. This is really about the bigger picture. But we need to be really thorough here. When we build the budget, we have to factor in all the costs: the travel, the lodging, activities, meals, and incidentals. I like to do this in a spreadsheet. There's lots of apps you can do this as well. The point is to be thorough, and setting a budget gives you a goal, and there's lots of ways we can make sure we have the right amount of money for all these things. And the more you pay in advance, the easier it can be to enjoy the trip. But ultimately start small. The idea is to test the waters here. So take trial adventures, especially before a retirement. Because these trial adventures, they can tell us a lot about what we want in the future. There are major life milestones that are coming. And when we have to go and do an early retirement or standard retirement, we're going to decide how we want to spend all that new time. The more trial adventures we can take, the more information we have on how to make that time the best and happiest for us. So you could do weekend trips, local excursions, short-term experiences, things that are hobby focused. There's lots of ways to do this without it being extremely expensive. And what you're trying to do is find what resonates for you. Because when you do find that thing that resonates, what you can do is you can start to build that into your larger, more expensive trips later. And it can be before you retire, when you retire, but you're trying to get an idea like, wow, I did a local zip lining adventure in my state. That was really fun. I want to make sure I'm going to start looking up places that have some of the most exciting zip lining in the world. That's just one example. There's a million examples here, but you try to figure out what you really enjoy, and then you can start to plan experiences and things around that. Next is to combine your social and travel goals together. This is to really optimize that dividend again. Travel with family or friends to strengthen those relationships when you're exploring these places. So, choosing trips and activities that are appropriate for you and the people that you're traveling with, limitations is really important here. You have to consider people's physical condition, make sure that people feel safe and comfortable, because what you don't want to do is go take a trip that you're really excited and capable for, but you feel like others are kind of like holding you back or, getting you down about it. It's about bonding. So really, keep the whole group's dynamic in mind, and then plan those group experiences intentionally, balancing personal preferences with shared enjoyment. You're trying to build health and fitness into your adventure planning in particular. So if you're taking a trip that's going to have some more adventurous aspects to it, think, can this help my health goals? My family, we did a trip to New York, and we could have rented a car, even though that's never really that much fun to do in New York, or we could have done other transit options. We decided we were going to actually intentionally walk a lot of the time. Because that's a healthy thing to do. We could experience the city in a different way, and that was actually really great. I'm really happy we did that. But the point is to leverage trips to reconnect with loved ones or to meet like-minded people. And don't forget, integrating adventure into long-term life planning is part of what we're trying to do here. As we travel more and have more adventures, we can use that as part of our broader financial independence plan, because then we can think, well, how does this fit in with how I want to live later? And we need to think about avoiding overextending financially as well. The goal is to have meaningful experiences without compromising our goals. We don't want to take a hit on our goals or have to delay our retirement just because we decide, oh, now I have to travel 5 times a year. No, it's not about that. It's about making the right decisions on when to travel and how to get the most out of that. So think about quality over quantity on that. And finally, as with all the rest of the things I talked about today, we don't know if our dividend's working if we're not actually measuring it in some way. So capture and reflect on the experiences, document the trips, look back. How did you do with your budget? Make sure you've captured your memories, go through the photos afterwards and reflect on which parts brought you fulfillment and which parts you'd like to carry forward into your next trip. We're trying to use these reflections to guide future travel choices and ensure that our adventures continue to enrich and provide to the happiness dividend. Let's go back to Sabin now, because he was kind of in this boat as well. And he was with his brother at a dinner, and his brother kind of challenged him about him always putting off his dream. And so as they talk, Sabin realizes that the perfect time may never arrive if he keeps waiting. And he begins to reflect. He's healthy. He has the financial means, especially if he does a little planning. And he has loved ones who could join him on this trip. The missing piece isn't money. It's just planning and commitment. That's it. And that's easy to fix. So he starts imagining the trip, training routines for climbing, budgeting for travel and gear, scheduling time off work, ensuring it doesn't interfere with his sports schedule. And he thinks about inviting Edgar and a close friend, knowing that the shared experiences will amplify his enjoyment. He also considers taking a small trial adventure beforehand, just a weekend hike in the local mountains or a short international trip, just to test his endurance and logistics. And for Sabin, it's not just a vacation. This is an actual investment into his happiness dividend. By intentionally planning the adventure now, he's ensuring that he's not just waiting for retirement to start living. He sees that the memories, growth, and bonds formed through this travel will create a return far greater than any material purchase. And by the end of the evening, Sabin's energized, he's determined, pulls out a calendar, marks his training sessions, schedules his time off, and drafts a tentative budget. And that just creates a feeling of being thrilled and excited, knowing that adventure is coming. That anticipation can feel really good as well. So the dividend almost starts paying off immediately. And, again, it can pay for it in bigger ways than we anticipate. So meaningful travel adventures, these are going to be some of the richest investments to your happiness dividend. Unlike material purchases, the memories, the growth, the shared experiences you gain from exploring new places or trying new challenges, these things last entire lifetimes. So the key is intentionality. Plan trips that align with your health, your energy, and your financial goals. And don't sit around waiting for the quote unquote perfect moment. Start small if needed. You combine adventures with loved ones and integrate these experiences into your broader life plan. And by prioritizing meaningful experiences now, you ensure that your financial independence isn't just about money. It's about fully living, creating stories, strengthening relationships, building personal fulfillment. The adventures you choose to take on today will become some of your richest returns tomorrow. Next, we'll explore how to make strategic, high-utility spending decisions to further optimize the happiness dividend in just a moment. What purchases bring happiness far beyond their cost? What is the most expensive thing you've ever bought that you'd buy again? Are there hobbies, experiences, or adventures you've been putting off because of cost? Look, not all spending is created equal. Some purchases and experiences, they will provide a return far beyond their price, delivering meaningful joy, personal growth, and lasting memories. This is what we call high utility spending. Money spent intentionally on the things that truly enhance our lives. High utility spending is all about aligning your dollars with your values and your happiness dividend. It could be a travel adventure that strengthens your relationships. It could be equipment for a hobby that brings you personal fulfillment. It could be a class that develops skills that you'll use for years. Unlike an impulse or a status-driven purchase, these investments will pay dividends in happiness, and also maybe energy and experiences, things that money cannot buy all alone. So the key is to not spend recklessly. It's to recognize where spending can create outsized value. When done thoughtfully, high utility spending complements your financial independence plan rather than detracting you from it. It's about making conscious choices, cutting low value costs, redirecting resources, and giving yourself permission to enjoy the things that matter most. Because by focusing on high utility spending, you're transforming money from a source of stress into a tool for living a richer, more satisfying life, turning your financial freedom into a true happiness dividend. We're going to go back to Saban, and he's been on this journey. He went from feeling lost and miserable to now feeling healthy, socially connected, and he's even planning big adventures and meeting life goals. But there's one thing he's been dreaming about for years, and that is a fully outfitted expedition vehicle. He wants a car that would let him and his friends explore more remote hiking and camping locations. And look, this happens as we start to get more connected again and we start to find our hobbies, our purpose. New expenses are going to pop up, and sometimes they can be quite steep. In Saban's case, the price tag is steep. It's $80,000. He needs something that's really outfitted for his purposes. But the idea of finally having the freedom to go on these trips, it's exciting him. He loves that idea that he can go and do things that he's been dreaming about, and he has people to go do it with him. But yeah, he's worrying, as we all do, that spending on that type of thing could derail our financial plans. So it's not easy for him to make that purchase. But what if it was? So let's go into some strategies on how we can make high utility spending actually part of the plan. The first key strategy here, though, is actually to identify your high utility areas, because you have to be honest about what they are. Because if you're wrong, you could potentially be doing a lot of regretful spending, things that could actually set you back. So first, you need to determine what purchases or experiences bring the most satisfaction relative to their cost. And this could be anything: travel, hobbies, learning opportunities, music, sports, personal development, gifts, time-saving services. There's no limit. Anything that actually brings a high degree of utility. Again, utility is, in a way, is just happiness. It's as you're doing that spending, it's bringing that happiness back in. So you can actually kind of go measure that. You can look at your spending, and you can actually ask yourself, if I were to measure this in a measure of utility, you can let's say you make up your own utility metric, 1 through 5. And you rate everything 1 through 5 in your expense sheet. You'll start to identify the 5s. Like, that was a 5 for sure. That was a blast. Do that again. Oh, I'm so happy I purchased that thing. Would definitely purchase it again. These are the things we're looking for, the really high utility things. Then you start to align your spending with your values. This one's really important, and it goes back to some of the cognitive behavior stuff that I talked to previously. But ensuring your high utility purchases, that they support your broader financial and life goals. When they tie in with your value, they're always going to bring more satisfaction. And so once you start doing that, you can start to balance your budget towards the high utility areas and essentials, cutting all your lower utility non-essentials. It's just what it sounds like. You're going to start avoiding the things that are trendy, or the things that you've been buying but you're not really getting much out of. Prioritize the things that you've recognized as providing you a lot of happiness. So as you go and you trim or eliminate spending on low utility items, like subscriptions you're not really using, impulse purchases, services that you're not really getting much out of, what you're doing is freeing up a lot more cash flow, and you're going to redirect all of that towards the things that provide meaningful return. Maybe it's budgeting for an expensive purchase. Maybe it's buying more of something that you're already buying. Or maybe it's just having extra cash flow. All those things feel good. But the goal here is to make the purchases work for you. Explore ways to get additional value from high utility items. So let's say you do end up buying a vehicle. You really, really get a lot out of a new car. You can actually get more out of that car than just making sure you could afford it. You could potentially rent it out when you're not using it. You could create social connections by carpooling with it. You just want to think through what's the highest optimal utility I can get from this. And you can leverage memberships or subscriptions as well to maximize benefits. There's lots of different quote unquote hacks you can do to get the most out of your high utility hobbies, items, services, whatever it is. You might even be able to generate passive income from it. So there's all kinds of things that might even not only not hurt you in your financial plan, it could actually help you towards your goals. So give yourself permission, though, to enjoy this spending because it's a high utility item. You should not feel any guilt by spending on that thing. It brings you happiness. It is not wasteful. It is a good thing. It is part of your happiness dividend. So the guilt is already planned out. You're good to go. And then evaluate and adjust as you go. Regularly review how your high utility spending is going. Is it still providing you value? Look, we change. Our interests change. Something might provide you a lot of happiness at one part of your life and less later. And there's actually a utility. There's a concave curve that happens throughout our life on this. We actually experience a higher utility when we have less. And as we gain more, it goes down. It's actually harder to feel utility gains as we acquire things. But that doesn't mean it's not possible. It just means that we need to shift, where we're spending, how we're spending, and things like that. So be flexible. Sometimes an activity or item may no longer bring you the same joy. And that's okay. You can always reallocate somewhere else. All right, let's go back to Sabin. He's been on this journey, but he's been hesitating when it comes to spending that $80K on the car that he needs because buying the vehicle feels extravagant and he's worried it might derail his financial plan. But then he applies this high utility spending principle framework. First, he identifies the true value. The vehicle will create experiences and memories that will last a lifetime. It's not a temporary thrill. Next, he reviews his budget. He's cutting low utility costs, such as any unused subscriptions and luxury conveniences that he doesn't really need or isn't bringing him happiness. So he's freeing up his cash flow. Then he explores ways to offset the cost. He can sell his current car, not just trade it in, sell it. Try to maximize the amount he gets for it. He could even look at selling some stock to cover the difference that he doesn't get from the car. Things that have long-term capital gains and that he ends up paying 0% capital gains tax on. So instead of borrowing and taking a hit there, maybe he could do some tax gain harvesting in order to help him not take a big hit on being able to budget for it. He could also even consider renting out the car when he's not using it. Lots of things he can do to offset the cost. He aligns the purchase with his financial and happiness goals. He has to see it as an investment in his happiness dividend and not a reckless expense. And by intentionally planning, researching, and budgeting, Sabin discovers that he can afford the vehicle without compromising his other financial priorities. For the first time, he feels empowered to spend on something that amplifies his life experiences, strengthens bonds with family and friends, and provides true joy. That concludes Sabin's experience. He went from someone feeling, kind of burned out, not super happy, maybe a bit lost, to someone maximizing every aspect of his life, spending on the things he knows that made him happy, things that reinforced his dividend with his family, his friends, and his health. That is a plan that's working, and anyone can get there with a little bit of planning. So with high utility spending, it's not about buying more. It's about buying smarter. It's about directing resources towards experiences and items that truly enhance your life, creating lasting memories, generating meaningful joy. And by identifying what brings the most value, cutting those low utility costs, and aligning purchases with your financial and life goals, you transform your spending into an investment. You give yourself permission to enjoy the things that matter most without guilt or regret. Remember, happiness isn't only about saving every dollar. It's about intentionally choosing how and where you spend to maximize the return in your life. Time, experiences, relationships, and personal fulfillment. When done thoughtfully, these high utility decisions will compound. They will enrich your life, and they're as good as any financial investment can. And so with high utility spending integrated in your plan, you're not just building wealth, you're building a richer, fuller life. And that brings us to the next stage of the happiness dividend journey, tying all these projects together to maximize joy while continuing our financial freedom. I just covered 4 big projects on ensuring that you have a happiness dividend, and not just that you're optimizing one. And I didn't cover everything here. There's a lot more we can do when we talk about happiness, like mindful practices, exploring purpose and meaning, building new skills, the helper's high, finding financial peace, or even how to optimize happiness dividend across different life stages. But the point is if happiness is already an explicit part of your plan, that's fantastic. Hopefully these projects inspire you to lean in even more. But if it's not, it's worth making it a priority. Because chasing money endlessly out of fear of not having enough, that won't automatically make you happy. Instead, treating money as a means to an end, a tool to invest in the things that truly matter, like your health, your relationship, your experiences, and your joy. When you intentionally weave happiness into your financial plan, you'll start collecting that happiness dividend every day, not just when you reach your goals. Remember, life doesn't start at the finish line. Every step of your journey can and should bring fulfillment. Use your resources wisely, invest in yourself, and let the pursuit of financial freedom amplify the things that make life worth living. Money is the tool, happiness is the return. That's it for today's episode. I hope you were able to find these projects helpful for your plan. If so, please do share this episode with someone. And also, I want to hear from you. What was the best purchase you've ever made? Post your answer in the comments or email me at escapetheclockmedia@gmail.com. Best of luck making every day the happiest day it can be and escaping the clock, and I'll speak with you next time. Thanks for tuning in to this episode. Remember, while I'm not yet a financial planner, I am getting my degree in wealth management. You should take anything you've heard here as tips and advice to making your plan. To learn more, visit www.escapetheclock.com. There, you can find the book, resources, including the planner, and you can even schedule time with me. Please remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.